It's the eternal question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And we're not going to answer that today, but I am going to introduce you to an amazing farm family, the Braswells. I'm at Smith's Red and White in Nash County, North Carolina. They've been carrying these eggs here 60 years. Here's the thing, if you ate an egg today, there's a real good chance the Braswells fed you too. They pump out 2 million eggs a day. Come on, let me take you where the food comes from. The feed is such a critical component, diet, what you feed your chickens. And now, of course, growers everywhere have come to rely on the Braswells for their own feed supplies and their own feed needs. It all started right here with this stone. Now you're blending for custom diets. You're blending across the spectrum. You're doing all kind of things in that building across the street.
This rock is the foundation of Braswell, for sure.
Oh, I get it. The rock's the foundation.
That's right. It's where it all started for Braswell. When you're looking at that end egg, it starts with what are we putting in the feed to get the egg that the consumer is asking.
So if you want to make a better egg, like the Braswells do for their varying partners and their own labels, you've got to have a better chicken. You got to have a better chicken. You've got to have better feed. One thing that fascinates me, Jackie, sometimes you crack an egg and the yolk is maybe a pale yellow. Sometimes you crack an egg and it's almost a bright orange.
It's very intentional.
Okay.
It's as intentional as you are what you eat, and that egg is the result of what that bird eats, is the result of a company that said we recognize our consumer wants a beautiful product that's also nutritious, because that yolk color is not just visually appealing, it is a more nutritional egg, nutrient-dense egg.
Let's go see what else is in the mix.
Sounds good.
All right. Jackie, you may be the only person here who doesn't care which came first, the chicken or the egg, because you come into a different part of this whole business. This is one of the most critical steps. Every chicken has to get fed. The Braswells are actually in control of their own feed and producing feed for other growers as well. This is all part of the full circle here at Braswell Farm. You've got a really critical role in all of this.
So if you were to ask what comes first, the chicken or the egg, I would take it a step back and say the feed comes first, because without the right feed, we're not going to have the end result of the egg that the consumer is looking for. So that all starts here.
We're in the feed mill. This is actually where this starts. And I don't know if people sit at home and go, I wonder what chickens eat. And you know, maybe you remember throwing out some corn at Granny's house when you were little or something. It's gotten a little more complicated. There's a lot of science. You're not just randomly feeding chickens. You're trying to build better chickens to make better eggs.
We support over 1,500 diets that are formulated, yes.
Wow.
that are formulated to the specifics of the claim on that egg carton, and to make sure the consumer is getting what they're wanting to purchase, whether it's high omega, whether it's, again, like more vitamin D, more vitamin E. You are what you eat, bottom line.
So are chickens.
Exactly.
And it all starts in here. This is a room with all the computers, all the controls, everything. The feed mill itself, it's a little more old-fashioned ingenuity. It's a more industrial kind of thing.
It's automated. When that feeding program hits this part of the system, this system knows I've got cornmeal in these bins, I've got soy meal in these bins, I've got vitamins and trace minerals in these micro bins, whereas you may be pulling thousands of pounds of cornmeal, you're pulling maybe 6-8 pounds of some key micro ingredients, and you're scaling in specifically these amounts, again, to target the ration that's right for that bird at that age and at that stage of production.
Well, everybody knows it's all in the recipe.
That's right,
All right,
exactly.
well, can we see how this works?
Absolutely.
Let's go, show us the way.
When you're looking at this from the outside and you're seeing a lot of steel boxes.
That's what I see. It looks just very industrial. That's what I was saying. You know, this looks like a factory.
Yeah.
Doesn't look as simple as chicken feed.
Right.
So now this is set up. You've got 2 rail lines that come through here. I guess this is where the trucks can come through and unload. What's coming out of this car?
So what this product is limestone. It's
For calcium?
Calcium.
Oh, wow.
And we run 2 different particle sizes of calcium. So
Just to complicate things? Or?
no, to fine tune it.
Okay.
Make it what that bird needs.
All right.
Okay. Every load of feed we make is a custom order, specific to a flock. So everything that we do is custom, specific to that flock's needs. Again, specific to that egg that we're our end objective.
And that's for the Braswell's birds, and that's for your other customers' birds.
That's right. This is David Cooper, who runs the corn shed for us. And what David doesn't realize is if he didn't do his part, the mill would fall apart. It truly would. Corn comprises 50 to 60% of the diet.
And it's right here. I mean, this is what we were seeing coming out of that truck, coming out of that hopper.
That's right.
Now it's in here, in this room. This is not where it's gonna be moved straight on for processing or anything. What are we doing here? Is this sampling, testing, trying to make sure that this corn is indeed what you think it is and what you need and what you want to put in this feed?
That's right. So we're working with Mother Nature. Every crop year is different. So David is testing this corn to see if it's suitable for our feeding program. And then we're sending off tests to align the diets back to the science.
Okay.
Every season's different. It's gonna have different protein, it's gonna have different energy. All that's gotta be considered, and how the formulas reformulate.
While every corn crop might be different, you might have different nutrient levels, different moisture levels. Your feed can't be different.
That's right.
Our main objective over here is to receive the corn, but also to make sure it's within our standards. First thing we do is make sure that the person is supposed to be here. After that, we'll take the sample. We'll come in here, we'll split the sample. We'll use these machines here to get our moisture, our test weight, and also our foreign material.
So really what you're trying to make sure is that every batch of corn, they know how to adjust the feed mix for that particular corn to make sure it's still meeting the exact same standard and it's gonna be what it says it is on the label.
Correct. And we don't want to accept anything outside of those standards.
Sure, of course.
Because we want to make sure that we're making the best product, but also that we're doing it in a safe manner.
Well, let's see how you do that.
All right, so our first job is we'll come and we'll split it. We'll split the sample here. Which splits it in 2 halves. 1 half we'll put on the scale here. The other half we'll put in our Dickie John. And so, as I said before, this will give us our test weight, our foreign material, and our moisture. Here, we're just gonna sift through this. And we'll check in the pan just to make sure there aren't any large pieces or anything that we don't accept, as well as to make sure we don't have any weevils or anything that could destroy the corn while it's in the bin. From here, we'll just put all the information on the ticket that goes back with the driver. so that when he checks out, he can take it to the scale.
So what did you just find out about that corn? I see some information on this dial over here. Moisture, 13.44%. Those are the kind of things you're learning from just running these?
Just running the
that
test.
quick little test. Now you know, is that within the range you're looking for?
Correct. So for moisture, our range, not to exceed 16. Anything 16 and below is fine to accept. For test weight, anything over 54 is what we'll accept.
So between what you started on that end and what happened on this end, do we now know this shipment of corn that you're testing this sample from, it's good to go, it's going into the mill?
Correct.
All right, so it's ready to roll on. So Scott, this old mill, I guess, goes back to the 1700s?
Right, original grant from the King of England to the bodies.
So this was King's grant land.
Right, like over 2,000 acres.
And I think people don't understand some of the original settlers here were promised land by the King of England to come in and settle this then wild territory.
Exactly, yes.
Wow, and it worked out pretty good for a lot of people. This mill meant a whole lot to generations of everybody around here, but the generations of your family too. Then in the 1940s, it took on an even more important role in your family's life.
Right. The original mill was built 1751 to 1754 in that area.
And it played an important role, I would assume, in generations of your family's life around here for decades.
For decades.
Centuries. But then in the 1940s, it took on a more important role for you.
Yep, my granddad and my great uncle bought it 1943. They'd already been here for 20 years running it for another man.
So they just worked for the man who owned the mill.
They worked for the man. The bodies that it's named after, the body plantation, original grant from the King of England, they lost it during the Depression. And so another man, Edwards, bought it, and then my granddad worked for them, and in 1943 they bought the operation.
So from there, I mean, at that time they were actually grinding meal. They were grinding corn.
Meal.
People would come in mules and wagons and line up and down this road. They were coming to have their corn ground and to get the cornmeal and grits that they needed. A lot of times that was just a barter system.
Right, they would grind the corn and then keep 10% of it or something like that for the meal. And we also sold to local groceries. So we had one little truck going around selling local groceries and things like that. So,
do I understand it correctly that this mill is what led to your family's involvement in the egg business?
yes.
How did draw those lines for us, Scott? How'd that work out?
Well, in the early 1950s, the late 1940s, my grandparents built up here, and behind in the early 1950s, they built the first chicken houses up here behind here, 1 and 2.
All right.
And 3, but 1 and 2. And we got into the chicken business, and but not the eggs. We would just raise for meat and things like that. And then finally got into the eggs, and then my dad and my uncle came back into it after service, 1955, 56. And they bought a flour mill in Nashville that y'all were at this morning.
That's Nashville, North Carolina.
Nashville, North Carolina, the original North Carolina, established in 1780. So, and turned it into an animal feed mill.
So this mill continued to operate commercially, and then, as is the way with all things, times change, things move on. By then, your family, that little chicken and egg business they had started out behind the house, had turned into something a little bit bigger and a little bit more special.
Exactly. And so they needed something for my dad and my uncle to do, so they bought the flour mill in Nashville, and then started some right up the road here, some layer houses and eggs, and we sold them to and houses here. We've already been over that. And we would sell the eggs to grocery stores and stuff. And then later on, when we got into the chicken business really big, we sold what we call nest run eggs, not in cartons. And so we didn't start back putting them in cartons until the late 1989, stuff like that. On our brands and everything, we bought EB.
So now it might be hard for people to draw the connection between a corn milling operation and eggs, but if you want to have eggs, you got to have chickens. You want to have chickens, you got to feed them. If you're going to feed them, the predominant thing in that diet is going to be corn.
Right.
So we might not be able to say which came first, the chicken or the egg, but in your case, we can say which came first, the chicken feed or the egg. It was the chicken feed coming out of this mill right here.
The corn meal coming out of here.
The corn meal.
And the chicken came first because God created the chicken. So
I'll accept that answer.
Okay.
I think that's as good as we're ever going to get, too, Scott. Now, this has maintained a special place in your family history, and even though it's long not been operational, it is finally back under family control, I understand.
Right. It was in multiple families of Braswells, and now Trey and I have it back. We plan to not remodel, but restore the mill. The pond needs to be drained. The gates on the dams need to be rebuilt, and the water wheel and stuff. So we're trying to get it back as much original as we can.
And just restore it back
right,
here.
Just get it cleaned up.
As a testament to your legacy.
Right,
to
exactly.
your heritage, to your family, and what the land and the Lord have given you right in this very spot
Absolutely.
On the planet.
And if you see the centerpiece in our corporate office,
is that millstone that we were sitting on earlier today.
That's right.
Having a conversation
right.
on. You never get too far from home, do you?
No, we don't.
It's beautiful,
Absolutely.
Scott. Absolutely beautiful. Y'all think that the industry does not take food safety seriously. I promise you, I've been in enough of these to assure you this is the case. Food safety is always top of mind.
Yeah, food safety and bird safety.
You've got an additional concern here. We see this, I mean, we go do salad greens and spinach and things. When you're going through those packing plants and things, it's not uncommon for us to wind up in get-ups like this. But what are the dual purposes here at this operation?
Well, we are working to cover up our clothes so that we're not bringing anything in. And at the same time, I got you, hold on, hang tight. Put your arm on my shoulder.
There we go.
Now lift your foot up. So we are working on not bringing anything in, and at the same time when we leave, we'll take them off so we don't take anything out with us, if there is anything.
Now that's gonna protect the birds.
That's right, we're really using this in this situation to keep the birds healthy and safe and make sure we're not bringing any potential disease or bacteria into the farm or taking it off the farm.
And you never know, because at any given time, there are things that are going around. We've all heard of avian flu. We've heard of X, Y, or Z. Things that can wreak havoc on a flock.
That's right. Yeah, that's the things we don't want to hear of, but that we do everything we can to make sure that we're protecting our birds.
So I think everywhere we've been today, we've had full sanitizers where you put your whole foot in.
That's right.
There are dip trays where you're walking through before you go through any doorway.
That's right.
All right, are we about ready now?
Yeah, I think we can go on there.
I don't wear these at home.
I got you. All right. Keep that foot up.
So now that can't hit the ground until it goes in this bucket.
Step on my foot there and we'll
All right.
get your other one in here.
And now my feet go straight into this
Straight into that
chemical
powder.
bucket. What's in the bucket?
It's chloride solution. It's dried chlorine powder.
So get them around in there good.
That's right.
Now I can come out and go to the other side, the clean side.
That's correct.
Here we go.
Right.
You're producing 2 million eggs a day.
There's
There's
right.
a lot more chickens
There
other
are.
places
There
than
are.
this. It's
There-
hard if you look down this down this sea of chickens and
It's
think
only
to yourself, that's
11,000.
only 11,000. And then you stop and think it takes 2 million more.
But the wonderful thing about a chicken is nothing gets wasted.
Right.
The manure, the bird, everything gets used just to continue to, you know, whether the manure gets used for the corn, it gets used to feed the chickens, but the bird, everything gets used for a future protein or a lesser quality protein.
And that's the circle of life, and that's
right.
also stewardship. And I never met a farmer who wasn't a steward first.